The first step in working with the Majestic frame and installing the QBOT is to remove the sewing machine and the upper carriage from the frame, and then take the lower carriage and turn it upside down onto a suitable table. I've got this one labeled here. This is the back of the carriage, back of the lower carriage, and it's upside down, and you're going to remove two of the screws that are right here and here, and then at the front of the carriage you're going to remove these screws here. So as you can see how this is laid down on the table, I have removed those screws, and I'm now going to put on the Y-axis wire holders, and they look like this. They're a matched set. They're mirror images of each other, and what you do is you place this here, line up those holes, and then we're going to place those the original screws in place. So let's get that started here real quick. You just put down the original screws one at a time. One there, and then finish it up here. And then this gets tightened up. Then you'll repeat that procedure for the front Y-axis wire holder, like so. The next step in the installation procedure is to mount the X-axis drive bracket. This is the X-axis drive bracket, and we're going to mount it to the back of the carriage in these two holes here. Now, it doesn't go directly on top like this. There are some spacers that we put in between the carriage and the bracket, and the spacer looks like this. So what we do is I'm going to slide this off the edge of the table like so, and we take this screw, which is a 1/4 by 1 inch, quarter 20 by 1.5 inch bolt or screw, and we place that up through the hole in the back, and then we put the spacer on it like so, and then we'll mount the bracket and then attach with a nut and tighten those two screws. Okay, through the magic of trick photography, the bracket is now installed, and you can see the spacers right here and right here that keep that bracket standing off the back end of the carriage. Now I'm going to flip this over so you can get a sense of what it's going to look like on the frame. So here, this is how it would look like on the frame. You can see the Y-axis wire holders there, and then the X-axis drive bracket holder right there. The next step is to mount the X-axis drive bracket or drive assembly to that bracket, and you do that with two 1-inch screws, two 1/4 20 by 1 inch long screws and nuts. And then we'll mount that to that bracket there. And this is what the X-axis drive assembly looks like mounted to its bracket on the back of the carriage. This assembly now can be transferred to the frame. The next step in the assembly for QBOT is to mount the Y-axis drive bracket, and that's this piece of metal here. And we have two holes on the top of the drive bracket to mount, which made up with the two holes in the Majestic carriage, like so. They line up, and then we put the two screws through those holes and then tighten the nuts on the back of those screws. So I'm going to do that right now. The next step is to mount the drive assembly to the drive assembly bracket. So here's the drive assembly, and I've put in the 1/4 20 by 1 inch long screws in either end, and now I'm going to attach that to the holes that are in the bracket. There's a hole in the front and in the back. And here's what the Y-axis drive bracket looks like when mounted to the carriage. So here's the whole assembly for the upper carriage. Now we can transfer this to the lower carriage that's on the frame, and we'll install the drive wire, the Y-axis drive wire. So here we're going to attach the Y-axis drive wire to the Y-axis wire holders, And what we do is we take the eyelet and slip it over the top of the little holder there, and then we're going to wrap it around twice around the drive wheel that's right here. I'll try to back up. You can see the drive wheel. We're going to go around, wrapping it twice around that drive wheel so that the wire comes off the bottom of that wheel. I'm going to put the camera down and do that, and then we'll come back to tensioning the drive wire. So we're wrapping that around that wheel 2 times. So I've wrapped the drive wire around that pulley that's in there 2 times, and it's coming off. The wire's coming off the bottom, and now I'm going to tension it up using the tensioner. And what's very important here is to hold the wire stationary here at this end. We don't want to twist that wire around itself, because that will cause a failure of the wire early. We want to keep that stationary and just turn the barrel of the tensioner, which is right here. This is what we're calling the barrel of the tensioner, right there. So, or the center of the turnbuckle. We want to keep that, keep the end stationary and just turn that barrel and get that really tight. One of the things that wasn't shown was when wrapping that wire around the drive wheel, it could be very helpful to lift up the carriage off of, lift the upper carriage off the bottom carriage so that you can get your hand in there to wrap the wire around there. After that, you can put the carriage back down, just keep some light tension on the wire so it doesn't unwind itself from the wheel, and then you tension it up. So I'm going to tension that up, and then we'll pluck that wire so you can get a sound of what that should sound like. I've got the wire tensioned up, and this is what it should sound like. It should have a nice high-pitched sound, and the carriage should move freely. So there we have the Y-axis all set up. This is tightened to the carriage, the drive assembly is tightened to the bracket, we've wrapped the wire, we have the Y-axis wire holders installed, and then we've tensioned the wire. So that's ready to go. The last thing is to hook up the X-axis drive wire holders and the drive wire itself. And we do that by placing the X-axis drive wire holder here on the frame. We remove the original screw, place this on, and then tighten the original screw back up. We do that on each side, so we have one of these on each side. Then we're going to wrap the wire around the drive assembly. And I'll show you that next. Okay, so I've installed the X-axis drive wire on. I started with this end here, and then I've run it down and I've wrapped it around the drive assembly. You can see in there I've wrapped it around the drive assembly 2 times, coming off the bottom of that drive wheel. And then I run it down to the other end of the frame where there is the turnbuckle. Let's scoot down to the other end of the frame where there is the turnbuckle, and then the other end of the turnbuckle attaches to the other X-axis drive assembly right there. And then we tighten the barrel to tighten up the tension in the wire, so you get this nice deep tone like that. So that's the installation of the drive assemblies on the Majestic frame. That's all there is to it, and everything's ready for you to now put on the sewing machine and attach the QBOT as instructed in your manual, and you can make all the electrical connections then.